Hi, algebra students. Sorry these weren't ready earlier. Like I said, Screencast-O-Matic wasn't working, but now we're good to go. For the 9.1 warm-up, take a look at simplifying this expression, distributing the 4 through the parentheses, 5x plus 8x plus 28. You can only combine the 5x and 8x, which becomes 13x plus 28. Over here, the main thing to remember on number 2 is to distribute a negative 6 through. So 9x minus 6x minus 12 and then plus 3. So those signs change. Be very careful of that. 9x minus 6x is 3x, and a negative 12 and a positive 3 is negative 9. On number 3, you have a square that is 18 centimeters on each side. In order to find the area, you take the side and you square it. 18 squared is 324 centimeters squared. Today's learning goal is to learn how to classify, add, and subtract polynomials. The first one is just talking about the terms. 4x y squared plus 3x minus 5. Each of these represents a term in the polynomial. Your constants are your plain numbers, like the negative 5 over here would be the constant. You know what the variables are. They would be x and y in this case. And the exponents, of course, are the 1 on the x, the 2 on the y, the 1 on the x, etc. We're going to talk about what polynomials are. Polynomials are one term, two term, three terms, etc. that can be added, subtracted, or multiplied together. This list right here are polynomials. 3x, x minus 2. This expression here where you have one monomial minus another monomial. Those are all examples of polynomials. Even the number 5 is a polynomial. However, these are not. In a polynomial, you cannot have a negative exponent. You cannot divide by a variable, in this case or in the next example. And if you had x to the 1/2, it's not a polynomial either because the exponent is 1/2. You cannot have fractional exponents. So now let's classify what's the difference between a monomial, a binomial, and a trinomial. If you think of your tricycle, your bicycle, and your unicycle down here, if you look on the monocycle or unicycle, you only have one wheel. The bicycle has 2, obviously a tricycle has 3. So a monomial is just one term, 3xy squared. Nothing is being added or subtracted. 5x minus 1 is a binomial. There's 2 terms. 2 things are being added or subtracted. And your trinomial is 1, 2, 3 terms that are being added or subtracted together. Focusing on a monomial for a second, a number of variable or the product of a number that has one or more variables with whole number exponents. The degree is the sum of the exponents of the variables in the monomial. So if you look down here, monomial is 10. There are no variables, so therefore the degree is 0. You have to have variables in order to get a degree other than 0. For instance, 3x, the exponent is 1 on the x, so the degree is 1. In the monomial 1/2 ab squared, you have to add your exponents. You have to get the total number of exponents here in the monomial. 1 on the a plus 2 on the b means that the degree would be 3. And obviously on the last example, the degree is 5 because the power is 5 over here on the variable. Now, if you look over here on this side, these are not monomials. A sum is not a monomial. This is a binomial. There's 2 terms. This is not a polynomial at all because you can't divide by a variable. This is not a monomial because you can't have a variable exponent, and you cannot have negative exponents either. So those are all examples of not monomials. Now, a polynomial is a monomial or a sum of monomials, each called a term. So you have your leading coefficient out in front, you have the degree of the variable, you're adding 3 more terms here. So this is a polynomial. It's 4 terms being added or subtracted together. This is the constant. The degree of the polynomial, not monomial this time, but the degree of more than one thing in there, is the greatest degree of its terms. So it's the sum of the exponents of the variable's leading coefficient. So remember, the leading coefficient up above is 2. So the leading coefficient decides what the degree is going to be. For instance, the expression 9, is it a polynomial? Yes, it's got 0 degrees. Why? Because it does not have a variable on it. 2x squared plus x minus 5 is a polynomial. It's second degree trinomial. It's a trinomial because it is 3 terms, 1, 2, 3, and the leading coefficient's a 2, and the exponent on the 2 is a squared. So the degree is 2 because it's the largest exponent. This, unfortunately, right here, is 6n to the fourth minus 2, or 6n to the fourth minus 8n squared, is not a monomial or a polynomial because it has a variable exponent on it. Therefore, you cannot classify it by degree or number of terms because it's not a polynomial. Same thing on the next one. N to the negative 2 minus 3 is not a polynomial because it has a negative exponent. So you can't classify it and you can't decide the degree. This last example, 7b c to the third plus 4b to the fourth c, is a polynomial. There's two terms, therefore I know it's a binomial. The degree is 5 because what you do is you take the highest sum of the exponents. You have 1 plus 3 is 4, or over here you have 4 plus 1 is 5. So the largest degree is 5. And technically 4 would be our leading coefficient because this right here with b to the fourth, that would be out in front. So this one should be written as 4b to the fourth c because the largest power of the exponents determines what the leading coefficient is. So if you were asked what the leading coefficient on this problem is, you should probably say that it is. Ms. Keating sent me an email. How about that? You should say that it's 5 because 4 plus 1 is 5, leading coefficient 4. As we move on down, standard form. This is how we rewrite the polynomials. So the exponents are ordered in descending order from least to greatest. Or I'm sorry, greatest to least. Scratch that. They are in order from greatest to least. So write the polynomial in standard form, identify the degree and the leading coefficient. This right here, that negative 4x squared has to go first. It's the largest degree right there, the largest exponent. Negative 4x squared plus x plus 9. Leading coefficient is negative 4 out in front. And then the degree is 2 because that's the largest exponent sum. Why is it a trinomial? Because it has 1, 2, 3 terms in it. This next one, example B, is already in standard form. You have the largest powers of the exponent over here already attached to the leading coefficient. So it's already in standard form. The leading coefficient is the 2. The degree on the leading coefficient, since it's this expression piece right here, 2 plus 2 is 4. It's a binomial because it's 2 terms. Now comes to the gist of the lesson, adding and subtracting polynomials. There's two ways to do it. If I wanted to add this trinomial here to this trinomial here, you can either line them up and do it vertically, or you can use the box and circle method and combine like terms. So if you line them up vertically, don't forget to match the exponents. 2x squared plus 4x squared is 6x squared. Don't you dare add those exponents. And then negative 3 plus 7 is 4x. 5 plus a negative 2 is positive 3. 6x squared plus 4x plus 3. Now, if I wanted to do this horizontally, which I often do, if that's a plus up there, I can just drop the second parentheses because I don't have to distribute a negative through. And then I'm boxing in 2x squared and plus 4x squared, grab the sign, is 6x squared. Circle negative 3x and positive 7x is plus 4x. And then 5 and a negative 2 is a positive 3 at the end. See, you get the same answer either vertically or horizontally. Now subtracting, be very careful. I'm taking this trinomial minus this binomial. So again, line up your terms. Notice there are no plain x's there, so I leave that spot blank. 3x squared minus x squared is 2x squared. Negative 2 minus nothing is negative 2x. 8 minus a negative 4 becomes positive 12. Which is why I would probably tend to use the horizontal method if I'm subtracting, because you're going to distribute that negative through the parentheses. Drop the first set though, 3x squared minus 2x plus 8, and then distribute the negative through the second parenthesis. Negative x squared plus 4. Box and circle, 3x squared minus x squared is 2x squared. Negative 2x stays by itself. Plus 8 plus 4 is plus 12. Again, you get the same answer either way, but I think it's almost safer to use the horizontal method when subtracting polynomials. The last two are done for you, and hopefully you understand how those two work. The most important thing to remember on this one, you've got a's and b's in here, and a squareds and b's. I would do the 6a squared b first. A negative 6a plus a 4b, can't add those together. I would tend to put the 6a first and then the 4b second. Watch your signs in front of those. If you have any questions, feel free to email me.